My brother framed me for stealing from the company I built after our parents died, and everyone believed him. Overnight, I lost my job, my reputation, my home, even my girlfriend, while he took over everything and let me rot. They called me a thief, a liar, a disgrace, and no one cared enough to ask questions. But he made one mistake. He underestimated how far I'd go to take it all back. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks a lot. I never thought my own brother would try to ruin my life just to take something I was always willing to share. I, 38M, spent the last 20 years helping my parents build our family business from the ground up. It started as a single garage when I was in high school. My dad was a skilled mechanic, my mom ran the books, and I was there every day after school sweeping floors, handling parts, managing inventory, and eventually taking on repair jobs myself. By the time I was 26, our business had grown into a chain of 6 full-service auto shops across 2 counties. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had a team of 40-plus employees, many of whom had been with us for over a decade. My parents worked hard, and so did I. My younger brother, Kevin, 36M, couldn't have been more different. Kevin was the kind of kid who got bored easily. He went through 5 majors in college before dropping out. My parents still paid his rent, his car, his phone bill, and even covered credit card debt he racked up while finding himself. He bounced between business ideas, crypto, streaming, flipping shoes, drop shipping, and none of them lasted more than a few months. My parents made excuses for him constantly. He's just creative. He hasn't found his niche yet. He'll grow out of it. He didn't. He got older, but not wiser. Meanwhile, I was running payroll, managing vendors, dealing with angry customers, and expanding our operations. When we opened the 4th shop, my dad semi-retired. I became the general manager and oversaw day-to-day operations. Kevin occasionally helped with marketing, which meant he posted on Instagram twice a month and then billed the company $800 for consulting. Still, I kept the peace. I never complained. I figured, eventually, Kevin would mature and join the business seriously. My parents were getting older, and I didn't want to carry everything alone forever. I hoped that maybe once they were gone, Kevin and I could run things together like they always wanted. It turns out he was just waiting for them to die. My parents passed away within a few months of each other. First, my mom pancreatic cancer that spread fast. Then, my dad had a heart attack just 6 weeks later. Some say it was from grief. I believe it. Losing them gutted me. They weren't just my parents. They were my business partners, my daily collaborators, the people I built something with. I barely had time to process my mom's funeral before I was arranging my dad's. Kevin, meanwhile, was suddenly everywhere. Crying at the funerals, giving emotional speeches about living up to their legacy, telling everyone how deeply committed he was to the family business now. I wanted to believe him. I really did. After the funeral, we sat down with the family lawyer to go over the estate. The will left everything, business shares, properties, and personal assets, split 50-50 between Kevin and me. I was named acting CEO of the company, with the board expected to vote on a permanent decision within 6 months. I remember Kevin smiling at me and saying, "You earned it, man. You've always held it down." I should have known it was bullshit. I kept things running. I was in the shops daily, meeting with district managers, checking on margins. Kevin sat in on a few meetings but didn't contribute much. He said he was strategizing from behind the scenes. I didn't push. I figured he was grieving and adjusting. The employees trusted me. The board members, 4 of whom had been appointed by my parents, also respected my leadership. Everyone knew I had been at the core of the business since the start. I wasn't worried. Then weird things started happening. First, our books were off. Nothing huge, just small discrepancies, a missing invoice here, a double payment there. Our accountant flagged them but assumed they were clerical errors. Then a vendor emailed me asking about a new partnership deal I supposedly approved. Only I'd never heard of them. When I confronted Kevin, he looked surprised. He said maybe one of our managers was making moves without permission and promised to look into it. That week, I found a weird new app on my office computer. It looked like remote access software. I assumed it was installed by our IT guy, but he swore he didn't put it there. Then came the board meeting from hell. I walked in expecting a quarterly performance review. Instead, I was met with silence. The CFO, an old friend of my dad's, slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed screenshots of emails allegedly from me, approving a $400,000 fund transfer to an expansion project that didn't exist. The bank documents showed it went to a shell company registered in my name. There were login logs from our system showing my credentials were used to access restricted accounts. Even a security camera screenshot showed me entering the building on a Sunday night when I was supposedly in town visiting my girlfriend. The chairman looked at me like I was dirt. Kevin stood in the corner with a devastated look on his face. He didn't say much, just whispered to one of the board members that maybe the stress finally broke him. They fired me that day. 20 years. Gone. They said they wouldn't press charges if I signed a non-compete and agreed to sell my shares back to the company at fair market value, pending investigation. That value just happened to be barely 60% of what it was 6 months ago. My reputation? Destroyed. Kevin? Installed as interim CEO until the situation is sorted out. I went home numb. I stared at my walls for hours. My phone rang nonstop, employees asking what happened, friends reaching out with pity. A few people believed me. Most didn't. Everyone wanted distance. Even my girlfriend said she didn't know who I was anymore. She left a week later, and that's how I lost everything. Or so I thought. I didn't get out of bed for days. I wish I could say I was angry from the start, that I marched out of that boardroom vowing revenge. I didn't. I was hollow. I had spent my entire adult life building something I thought I'd pass down someday. I believed in my family. I believed in loyalty. I believed in Kevin. I was an idiot. For the first 2 weeks, I barely ate. I ignored calls. I shut the blinds, left the dishes in the sink, and stared at the ceiling wondering how I could have been so blind. How could I have not seen what he was doing? He knew every weakness I had. He knew I trusted him. He used it like a weapon. My savings started drying up fast. They froze all my company accounts. The severance they offered came with a gag order and a confession letter I refused to sign. That meant no payout. My personal reputation was so wrecked that job interviews were pointless. One recruiter even asked, "You're that guy who embezzled from his own parents' company, right?" I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. The worst part? No one, not one single person from the company, stood up for me. Even people I'd known since high school, guys whose weddings I'd gone to, people I'd promoted and protected, just quietly turned their backs. Except for one. Her name was Lacey. She was our head of compliance and had been hired 2 years earlier. She reached out one night with a simple message. "I don't think you did this. And I think you need to look into the shell company they said was yours. The paperwork looks off." It was the first crack in the wall that had closed around me. I called her the next day and asked her to explain. She said that when she reviewed the documents for the board meeting, the signatures didn't match what she had on file from me. The company was registered using my name, but the address listed wasn't mine. It was an old P.O. box Kevin had used during one of his failed businesses. But she couldn't prove it outright, and she was already under pressure from the new leadership. She told me she couldn't help further without risking her job, but she suggested I find a digital forensics expert and follow the paper trail. I didn't have much to go on, but it was enough to pull me out of the fog. I sold my car. I canceled every subscription. I started doing freelance mechanical work under the table to stay afloat. I lived on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches and swallowed my pride every single day. But I took what little I had and started hiring people. First was a forensic accountant, then a cybersecurity consultant, some kid barely out of college who'd done IT work for a guy I knew. I gave them every file I'd saved over the years, every email, every backup drive, access to my cloud. They got to work. Weeks passed. I went broke. I almost gave up. Then I got a call. The tech kid sounded excited. He told me the timestamps on the email authorizations didn't line up with my devices. The system logs showed my credentials were used, but the IP address didn't match my location. He was able to pull up login logs from my router to prove I wasn't online during those times. Even better, he found traces of remote desktop software installed on my office computer just days before the fake transaction started. It got deeper. The shell company that received the $400,000? Registered under my name, sure, but the EIN number had been used previously. The forensic accountant traced it back to one of Kevin's failed branding agencies from 5 years ago. He had reused the corporate number and just filed under a different name with fake information. The shell's bank account? Opened in a town I'd never even visited. The bank required an in-person verification, but guess who had visited that branch 3 weeks earlier? Kevin. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just greed. This was deliberate, calculated, malicious character assassination by my own brother. And he'd almost gotten away with it. The last piece of the puzzle came from the security footage. The clip they used in the board meeting showed me entering the office on a Sunday night. It was grainy and short, maybe 4 seconds. But my tech guy got curious. He pulled metadata from the footage and noticed something off. The timestamp didn't match the system's internal clock. Someone had clipped and redated old footage. He even found the original version, saved on an external backup drive the company had missed when wiping my old workstation. The real footage showed me walking into the building 3 years earlier, on a completely unrelated day. And in the background, a poster advertising a promotion we'd run during that exact month proved the footage was doctored. That was the nail in the coffin. I had everything. Digital forensics, forged documents, fake companies, doctored evidence, and a motive. Kevin wanted full control of the company, and he knew the only way to get it was to destroy me. I packaged everything. Dozens of files, testimonies, IP logs, metadata, notarized reports from my forensic accountant, copies of the LLC filing showing Kevin's handwriting on physical forms. I even tracked down a former associate of Kevin's who admitted he'd been paid to help set up the fake company, under the assumption it was some tax write-off scam, not a full-on framed job. I brought it all to a lawyer. He read through it silently, then looked at me and said, "This is criminal. Not just civil. We're taking this to the DA." I was back. But I wasn't just interested in clearing my name. I wanted Kevin to burn. It started with a letter. My lawyer sent a formal notice to the board, attaching the first 10 pages of the evidence packet, just enough to shake them. It came with a warning: either reinstate me and begin criminal proceedings against Kevin, or we be filing for wrongful termination, defamation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. He gave them 1 week. 4 of the 7 board members scheduled a private meeting with me and my lawyer the next day. They looked uncomfortable, like people who knew they'd backed the wrong horse but weren't sure how to jump ship without getting their feet wet. I didn't let them off easy. I laid out everything. Every forged email, every fake vendor, every traceable transaction. I showed them how Kevin had manipulated the system using a combination of charm and backdoor access. The metadata proved I hadn't even been on site the day the supposed evidence was gathered. I showed them the original, unaltered security footage, the forged signatures, the shell company tied directly to Kevin's old P.O. box. They didn't say much, but I could see it in their eyes: fear. Fear they'd been complicit. Fear of what would happen if this went public. Fear of what they'd done to me. One of them actually had the gall to say, "We thought we were protecting the company." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You destroyed the person who built it," I told them. After that, things moved fast. The board suspended Kevin pending an internal investigation. They offered me a private settlement to avoid going to court, $1.2 million, a public apology, and the immediate reinstatement of my shares and voting rights. I declined. I wasn't there to settle. I was there to dismantle him. My lawyer filed a civil suit and handed everything over to the district attorney's office. Within 2 weeks, Kevin's world started to unravel. Subpoenas went out. His laptop and phone were seized. His financials were audited. The man who'd helped him fake the LLC was brought in for questioning and flipped almost immediately. Kevin was arrested on charges of fraud, wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and identity theft. The mugshot was glorious. The news hit local papers and online business blogs. "Brother framed sibling in corporate coup attempt," one headline read. I got calls from people I hadn't heard from in months, some apologizing, some begging for meetings, some trying to reattach themselves to me like leeches. I ignored most of them. One message came from my ex-girlfriend. She said she was sorry, that she never stopped believing in me, but didn't know how to support me at the time. I didn't reply. Kevin tried to delay the trial, but the evidence was airtight. His attorney tried to spin it as mental instability brought on by grief, but no one bought it. The jury took just 2 hours to convict. He got 6 years in federal prison, with eligibility for parole after 4. I went to every day of that trial. I sat in the front row, wore a suit, and made sure he saw me every time he turned around. He looked at me once. I stared back and didn't blink. When the judge read the verdict, I felt something shift inside me. Not joy, not relief, just peace. After the conviction, the board begged me to return as CEO. This time, I made them sweat. I made them vote. Publicly. One by one. All 7 voted yes. I returned to the company as CEO with full control. Kevin's shares, now forfeited as restitution, were split between me and a company-controlled trust. I took a salary cut, cleaned house, and replaced half the management team. Anyone who had supported Kevin's rise while staying silent during my downfall was gone. The employees welcomed me back cautiously at first. I didn't blame them. Most had been lied to. Some had feared for their jobs. But over time, things changed. People smiled again. They talked openly. Productivity shot up. Revenue rose for 3 quarters in a row. Lacey, the compliance officer who had first reached out, became my VP of operations. I gave her full authority to audit everything, anytime, no approval needed. A year after returning, I had doubled the company's market value. That's when the rest of the family started reaching out. Uncles, cousins, family friends. All the people who'd whispered behind my back, who'd shrugged when Kevin turned everyone against me, now they wanted dinner. Reconnection. A fresh start. I told them all the same thing. I'm not angry. I just don't need you anymore. Some cried. Others begged. One even wrote a 4-page letter about how family bonds should never break. I shredded it. The house that Kevin had been living in, the one my parents had left to both of us. I bought out his half and donated it to a local nonprofit that houses foster teens who age out of the system. They were named at the Sullivan House, after my mother's maiden name. She would have liked that. There was one last thing I needed to do. I drove to the cemetery alone. It was a warm, quiet afternoon. I stood between their graves for a long time before I said anything. I'm sorry it turned out this way. I did what you asked. I tried to keep the family together. I trusted him because you did. I wish you'd seen who he really was. But I fixed it. It's safe now. The company. Our legacy. Everything. I placed a photo on the headstone. It was from 10 years earlier, me, my parents, and Kevin at the opening of our 3rd shop. We looked like a real team. I left it there, even though it felt like a lie now. As I walked back to my car, I felt the weight finally lift. He tried to take everything from me. But in the end, he gave me something better. Clarity. It's been over a year since the trial. Kevin is still in prison. The last I heard, he was trying to get early release by claiming he had a spiritual awakening. His lawyer sent a letter to my attorney asking if I'd write a statement in support of reduced sentencing, said it would help his rehabilitation if his brother showed forgiveness. I told them no. I didn't say it out of spite. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just didn't believe in rewarding someone for faking remorse after being caught. Kevin hadn't apologized to me once. Not in court. Not in private. Not even a single line of acknowledgement. His letter wasn't an apology. It was a negotiation. And I don't negotiate with people who tried to destroy me. Sometimes people ask if I miss him. That's a harder question than I expected. Because the truth is, I miss the brother I thought I had. I miss the version of Kevin I used to imagine, the one who would have stood beside me, who would have helped me grow the business and share the weight after Mom and Dad died. I miss the brother who never actually existed. But the real Kevin? I don't miss him at all. The company is stronger than ever. I've since opened 2 new locations and started a paid internship program for young mechanics coming out of trade school. I've made it a point to invest in employees who were often overlooked, especially the ones who were working their asses off while people like Kevin drifted by. I also built out a new compliance department with rotating audits, transparent accounting, and whistleblower protections. I'll never let anyone bury the truth again, the way I was buried. And personally, I'm okay. Still rebuilding, still cautious. I don't trust easily now. It's like learning to walk again after being hit by a truck. Slow, unsteady, but possible. I haven't dated seriously since my ex left during the worst of it. She messaged me again recently, wanted to meet for coffee, said she regretted how she handled things. I said no. She wasn't there when it mattered. That's all that counts. A few months ago, one of Kevin's old friends, someone who used to laugh at my expense, showed up at a company networking event. He tried to buddy up, told me he always knew something was off about the story. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You said nothing when they buried me." That's all I remember. He left 10 minutes later. And yet, I don't live bitterly. That surprises people. I think they expect me to be angry all the time. But I'm not. I was angry for a while, sure. Furious. But that kind of rage eats you alive if you let it stay. What fuels me now is clarity. knowing who I am, knowing what I survived, knowing who stood by me and who didn't. Lacey, the one who risked everything to reach out when I was at my lowest, is still my VP of operations. We have lunch once a week and talk about life outside of work. She reminds me there are still good people in the world. We've become close. Maybe more, eventually. We'll see. I've learned that sometimes, losing everything shows you what's worth rebuilding. I thought I had a family. I had a job. A future. I lost it all because someone I trusted wanted more than their share. But now I have something better. I have a company that runs with integrity. I have the truth. And most importantly, I have myself. So no, I don't forgive Kevin. And I don't forget. But I've moved forward. Not because he deserves peace, but because I do. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.